So this is what a blown up M113K looks like. Oh wow. Oh wow. There's a hole right there, right here. Even a hole up top. We got a valve. Here in my garage. What is up, everybody? Today we are getting our CL55 up and running. It's been a little bit of a change to the plan. Instead of rebuilding that CLK55 block and swapping over all the internals from this engine, I decided, since the engine damage is too catastrophic on this one, I ended up going back to Michigan, back to the same place where I picked up the Lamborghini. Loading up the motor, 42,000 miles. This came out of a SL55. We pretty much have everything we need besides the supercharger, the harness, water pump, a couple pulleys. I got an engine, M113K here, with 42,000 miles. This came out of a SL55 that was parted out in a flood. This is essentially a long block. So this is the heads, the block, everything you need besides the accessories, the supercharger, and everything around, all the pumps, headers. So what we're gonna do today, start disassembling everything we need off of this motor. Let's get to work because my talking isn't gonna get any of this done. Let's take everything we need off this motor in order to paint it. So first are gonna be the surge tanks, Torx T30, and you remove all these bolts here. Okay, see, now this is fully ready to come off. It's supposed to have two clamps that you're gonna wanna loosen, so grab a flathead. You could just grab a 7mm and loosen these up as well. Alrighty, we have our first surge tank off. Let's remove our second surge tank. Okay, cool. We got both of the surge tanks removed. When you guys do take these off, all of these bolts are a different length. Whether you're gonna paint this and you're gonna remove these, you're gonna wanna remember which length goes where, because all these screws are a different length. We're gonna be painting a lot of this stuff with this. It's called Wrinkle Plus. A lot of the factory finishes on a lot of supercars come with this kind of wrinkly, high temperature finish, like Lamborghini valve covers, Ferrari valve covers. So we're gonna go for that supercar exotic kind of look. Once we remove the surge tanks, to remove the supercharger, it's going to be a couple bolts in between here. But before we even get started on removing those, we're going to want to take off the fuel rail right here, which is held on by a couple E10 Torx. So let's remove that. All we got to do now is just pull up on it, and all your injectors are gonna come right out. Now you gotta remove this tube right here. It goes to the back of the supercharger. Let's see, what is stopping us? We can maybe wiggle it out of here. Yeah, you're able to actually wiggle it out, but I'd recommend, to make this job a lot simpler, remove the throttle body in order to make it a lot easier on yourself with removing the fuel rail. Disconnect every single one of these injector wiring clips. Okay, so this side is free. And you guys never want to tug on the wire directly. That's a very fast way to break an old plug. You want to just kind of gently wiggle it out. Keep in mind that all this stuff is 20 years old. And this is the hottest part of the engine right here. So these plastic connectors that are 20 years old, that have been sitting in heat, don't do very well when coming off. Once you have the fuel rail off, you have access to these bolts right here that hold the supercharger down. Couple bolts here. Okay, so this side has some Ace Hardware looking bolts, but it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and those are regular heads. And then on this side we have Torx heads. Get that off. T45, and we're going to take these bolts in between here that hold the supercharger down. You're going to want to disconnect these secondary air injection. We're actually, on this motor, we're doing a delete on these. Let's pull these off. To do a delete, I remove these, and I ordered from VRP secondary air injection plates. These are essentially block off plates that go in place of this, essentially right here. So we're gonna get rid of these because these are unnecessary. They can create extra vacuum leaks for us that we don't need, and they'll just clean up, leave a lot more room, and it'll make the engine a lot more simple. I like simple. The simpler you go, the better. So let's put these in the bin. All these bolts, oh see, I forgot, loosen this bracket, but somebody's already taken this off. I can tell somebody's already taken this off because this is pretty much ready to be taken off without even removing this bracket. Let's lift this very heavy supercharger off. Oh, this thing weighs, wow, this thing weighs a fuck ton. Oh, there's still something connected here. Okay. Oh, yep. Don't forget to disconnect some of these sensors, guys, because you're gonna rip off the wiring. Oh, holy shit. Oh, that's a heavy motherfucker. I'd really be careful trying to take this off yourself because that's a very, very heavy supercharger. I'd recommend 2 people for that because you could mess up a lot of stuff by trying to take that off yourself. I broke one of these little vacuum lines, but that's okay. I think we're not going to be using this system anyways. Supercharger's off. Let's remove the ignition coils. T30. For removing these, there's 2 different options. You could take a 17mm wrench. This is the easiest way to do it if it's in the car. You can get a special tool for this, but this is your homemade tool, or you could just pull on them with your hand. It just depends what's easier. Yeah, these clips are always broken on these ignition coils. You could just see all these clips are broken because somebody changed these already. Some of these are brand new. These are newer, from 2020. I hate how much of a mess this is all becoming so fast because there's so many components. The harness, just got to disconnect the crank position sensor. It's a lot easier to just pull off these wires when they're on here. The one on top always goes to the first spark plug, and the one on the bottom goes to the second. Same with here. The one on top goes to the one that's towards the beginning, and then the one on the bottom goes to the one next to it. So that's how you know how to plug these back up later when you're putting this back together. So we got all our ignition coils out of the way. Wow. Damn. We got piston chunks. Wow. That's crazy. So not only did this motor explode right here, it shot piston chunks even to the top of the motor. Oh wow, there is a piston sideways. I cannot wait to take off the heads off of this motor and see the extent of that damage in there. That's nuts. I see a rod sideways. catastrophic engine damage, guys. We're gonna have some of these wires going to the alternator, one ground on the valve cover, and there's also a wire. Where is this wire going? Okay, I see it. So there's a switch on the AC compressor itself. Okay. I want to disconnect that. Okay. How are we going to pull this through? This cam sensor is holding in a part of the harness here. Okay guys, as far as the alternator goes, it's an E14. Just take that off. Once you get these two E14 bolts out, you just pry lightly on it and it should pop right off. Okay. And there is a plug on the alternator you're going to want to disconnect. There is some sensors here you're going to want to disconnect from the oil. I think this is the oil sensor. So we want to get all the harness removed. Disconnect these sensors in the valley here. There's two of them. And let's remove these valve covers. E10, yep. Here there's a ground on the left side of the valve cover. So we're gonna remove that and put that bolt in through. And there's also a sensor. Disconnect that. That should give us the whole harness. Beautiful. Got the whole harness out. Okay, and once you guys have them all, it's as easy as just picking this up. Oh well. That's a huge difference. But a valve cover with 160,000, it's a whole lot different than a valve cover with 40,000. A lot more gunk on this. Okay, this tool's a lot quicker than the other one. Let's take off the AC compressor. That's going to be a E12, and there's about 3 bolts holding it in place. But before you remove this, make sure you disconnect that sensor. The harness comes through here and connects to a plug on top of the AC compressor. AC compressor is off. 3 E-Torx E12 bolts right here. It's all that holds the AC compressor in place. So in order to remove this little tensioner pulley, we're gonna have to put a 17mm on it, release some of the tension. It's to the left. There's gonna be a little hole. You're gonna want to insert something in here, and that's gonna allow you to get access to this bolt right here. If you don't put something in there, you won't be able to access this bolt hole. We grab our E12. Now we could remove this. This one here is also going to be a central E12. This is actually an upgraded idler pulley. It's all metals. Let's take that off. These originally come made out of plastic. So it's actually nice to have a upgraded metal part. Same with these. This is actually an upgraded part because these are typically made out of plastic, and these split in half and they shred your belt. They cause a lot of issues. But with the upgraded ones, you don't have that problem. Okay, this is going to be a T50 for these double idler stacks. You're supposed to lift it all the way up so you can stick a pin through that hole into this hole, and that's what's going to keep the tension off so you could remove this bolt. Okay, perfect. Like this. Cool. Now we have access to these holes right here. T45. Okay. So this right here is the supercharger belt tensioner, and it's only really held on with 2 bolts, and this also holds the bracket for the supercharger cooling lines. Next up, we're gonna remove this water pump. It's gonna be a T45, and then these are gonna be, it's an E10. Throw these bolts in here because we already have them all lined up here. These are all different size bolts, guys. Make sure you note the sizes of all these because it might make putting it back together a little trickier. Let's remove the rest of these. Okay. Forgot to mention that this might leak a little bit of coolant. And that's really it. That's your water pump. After taking out a million different screws, you got the water pump out. Let's take off the thermostat housing. Anyway, might as well save everything we can off of it. Guys, gotta be careful. Nice thermostat. Okay guys, now that we took all of the tensioners, now we can get the ABC pump off, and that's held on with a T45. You take off these 3 bolts, take this off, and it's gonna be a E12. The 3 ABC pump pulley cover bolts. Now we can, with ease, remove the actual ABC pump, and we're gonna get that done by these 2, and then on the back you got 1, 2, and this is gonna be, I'm guessing, a 13 millimeter, like everything. Yep, it's gonna be a 13 millimeter bolt. Grab a side ratchet, and it's gonna be 1 bolt in the back here. That, okay. And then we also have this support bracket. So that support bracket is held on by, let me guess, not a 13, that's going to be a 10. Very odd, because most of these are 13s, and it's 12, so very odd size, but hey, it's 12 millimeter for that little bracket. Or we could have also, well, no, we need to remove the bracket. Okay. That's that. Don't forget to put this on here. Okay. That's our beautiful suspension pump, tandem suspension pump. Alrighty guys, we have a ton of stuff off this engine. We almost have everything that we need off of it. Let's take the crank pulley off. A good Milwaukee gun and a 27 millimeter socket, and we'll get this crank bolt off, no problem. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. Just slight prying. I know there's a special tool for this. Since we don't have that special tool, we just kind of removed this crank pulley by prying on it. And this is actually a very expensive part. And this, somebody replaced this in 2012. I don't know if we want to use this crank pulley or this crank pulley. We're gonna have to decide on that. But that's for a different day. For today, we're just gonna get all this disassembled. What the hell happened here? I think this motor skipped timing because I don't... Is the chain supposed to really have that much slack? I don't know. Coolant temp sensor right there. Before we remove the camshafts, we are going to take off the oil filter housing just so we have easier access to this bolt here. And then we're going to remove the heads and disassemble the entirety of this engine because, as you guys can see, this thing is beyond messed up. To remove this oil filter housing, all you got to do is unscrew the actual oil filter. Got a nice little drain pan. And then to remove the oil filter housing, all that's holding it is a 46 millimeter big jumbo socket. I had to specifically look around for this socket because it's not sold in a whole lot of places. That's gonna fit nicely in there. We're just gonna have to grab a reducer. A bolt right there. And this will come right out. Now we have access to the cam sprocket here to the bolt. There's also some gaskets if you're reassembling your engine. These gaskets usually always leak. This thing is just old. To remove the camshafts, you have to loosen the camshaft bearing bridges in a specific order, and it's the reverse order that it was tightened in. And you have to essentially loosen all these bolts ever so slightly until they're just fully loose and there's no tension anywhere, and then you could just impact them out. For these bolts, it's going to be a E10 torque socket. This is number 1. So we're going to take a little bit of torque off that. Number 2 is right here. Essentially, you're going back and forth just so you're releasing the tension evenly and not all at once on one side or all at once on the other side. Once you have these loosened and untorqued, you can just use a regular impact to fully get them loose. The sequence is only important to take the torque off of everything evenly. Once you have them untorqued, you could just go in any order you'd like. This should lift right up. Okay, that's your camshaft bearing bridges. And now you have access to your cam. And to be able to take the cam out, we're going to have to take off this Torx bolt that's holding the actual sprocket, the timing sprocket, onto the cam. Okay, we're going to hold this down. And this is supposed to be a Torx. I unfortunately don't have this size Torx. And I'm not going to be reusing this engine. I have a whole new engine, so I'm just going to put a 14 socket on here with an impact, and hopefully it's going to be able to take that right off for us. Okay, that worked. And if you guys are gonna be reassembling the engine, because I'm just taking this apart just to get rid of just to get all the useful stuff out of it. You're gonna want to tie down the timing chain so you don't lose the positioning of your timing. You're gonna want to put a zip tie here, but since we're not gonna be reassembling this, we don't really need to do that. Now the timing sprocket's gonna come off the cam, and the cam should come right out. And there could be some oil potentially in here, but not in this one. So we got a nice AMG camshaft. This is actually a good upgrade for the non-AMG motors. This gives you a little bit of a bump in power. Essentially with this, you're just going across. So you're doing one end, the other end, one end, the other end, and then you're just getting closer and closer to the center, and then you could just impact all these bolts right off. Once these are all untorqued, take some sort of impact or bit driver and remove them all in whatever order you'd like. Okay, you got access to your cam now. Hold down the cam sprocket. And the cam is ready to come right out. For taking off the heads, there is also a sequence. So first we're going to take off A and B, like the bolts inside of here. And then in sequence here, we're going to remove them in order. First, we're going to loosen bolts A, which are the ones on the inside of the head. So it's going to be these bolts right here. Careful not to drop these in there if you are rebuilding the engine. So these are bolts A. And then bolts B are going to be the ones on the outside here. Okay, bolts A are off, and then bolts B, the ones right here. Once you have bolts A and bolts B off, I forgot to mention earlier that you guys are also going to want to undo the timing chain tensioner bolt, which sits right here. It's a 27 millimeter. You guys are going to want to undo this before you start to unbolt the timing chain sprocket, just so you're going to be able to pull it out, because when the chain is actually under full tension, which is that's what this does, it's going to be really hard to pull out the sprocket. We're going to have to remove the bolts. You're going to have 10 bolts holding the head to the actual block itself. To remove those, you're going to want to grab a T55 Torx. The bottom bolts are down here, and then the top bolts are right here. This is what holds the cylinder head onto the block. So you're going to want to take these off in sequence. If you just started to randomly unscrew them, you could potentially warp the head, and you definitely don't want to do that. Bolt 1 is going to be this one. Alrighty guys, these head bolts are on real tight, and this engine stand keeps moving around. We're going to add a little bit of a pipe to increase the leverage. That definitely worked, so that's a good tip. Since these head bolts are on super tight, get yourself a breaker bar and you can put the end of your jack handle on the end, and that'll give you enough leverage to move these around. Once you guys cranked all these bolts just so that the torque is removed evenly, we can just fully impact them out now since the torque is all released. all of the head bolts off now. Head is successfully off, guys. Oh wow. We got a valve. Wow. That's crazy engine damage. I mean, just make sure you ate a good lunch and dinner before you go and do these, because these are torqued down pretty tight. It's quite the workout. Alrighty guys, and now you can just impact them out. So we got the heads off. Now let's remove these knock sensors on top here so we don't forget. It's also a E10 Torx. Okay. I want to remove the front timing cover. Alrighty guys, so all the bolts that are holding the timing cover are a T45 Torx. I don't see any other bolts. I think we got them all. This one right here. Yeah, we're definitely going to want to drain that before we remove. I believe we have to remove the bottom oil pan in order to get this off. So this is what a blown up M113K looks like. Let's take the bottom pan off. Somebody cross-threaded these bolts. Oh, holy shit. Wow. Oh, wow. Wow. This engine got destroyed. Oh my god. All the rod bearings. Even the oil level sensor is not reusable. Wow. That's insanity. So we have a whole rod literally fell apart, bent the whole screw. We got piston chunks, spun bearings, more piston chunks. Valves, broken valves. We got screws, that's probably from the rod caps. Wow. That's insane. The magnet is at least doing its job. There's some sort of gasket that this engine swallowed. Maybe that's what led to the blow up. It's hard to say. Holy fuck. Wow. Let's take the rest of this upper oil pan. These are all E10 Torx. A lot of the stuff on this engine is E10. Okay. Looks like somebody's been in here. Somebody resealed this stuff. For taking off the engine mount holders, this is what the engine mounts bolt up to. You're gonna use a E12 Torx, and there's 4 bolts. I need a little bit of an extension as well. And then this other side has 5 of them. Oh, got even a broken chunk here. We're gonna also remove this oil pump, T50 Torx. There's 1, 2, and 3. And then there's a guide here that's making the chain tight. So you're gonna pull that back. And that's gonna allow that to come right out. You get the oil pump off. Careful, because there is gonna be a little bit of oil in here. Okay, because these guys just come right off. I believe what happened to this engine is this timing chain just stretched, skipped timing, and then it just started destroying pistons and everything else in here. These engines aren't really known for blowing up, but from age, things stretch, and if maintenance wasn't done on time, with higher mileage, this is what could happen. Wow. It's not a pretty sight. We got a rod that's stuck. We just got a lot of chunks of everything. Oh wow. Let's get this crank position sensor off. That's on very loose. Somebody hand tighten that. You don't want to actually over tighten these because this plastic will crack. Just gonna move it side to side, free it up a little bit. Very tight fit. But this is actually a Bosch original, so it's actually a good part if it works. These sensors could just give out on you anytime. It's best to always go with OEM. They last the longest. This is actually a reverse threaded bolt. So to loosen this one, you're going to want to tighten this, and that's going to be a E14. Alrighty guys, so despite I put the crank bolt back on so I could spin this, but despite it being all blown up, the crank still spins. The motor did not seize up. I mean, none of this is really usable. There's a lot of scoring on this. Possibly maybe the crank could be resurfaced. I highly don't think so, but who knows? Miracles are possible. So we are gonna just fully take it apart. We're gonna start with taking the pistons out. So we're gonna loosen up these. For that is gonna be a E10 Torx. If these pistons and everything was good, we would also want to make sure to match up the correct cap for the correct rod, because they all belong to one another. Okay, that is definitely not how you want to remove a good piston. But I don't think these pistons, I mean, nope. Look at that. That's all cracked. That's all chipped. I do just want to take all this out just to see how bad the damage actually is. Okay, that's how you pull out a piston. You want to make sure to catch it, because these are, they could slide out pretty easily. Let's see. Okay, well, this piston doesn't look like it has really any damage. Maybe there is 1 or 2 good ones, but I would not trust reusing these anywhere. Okay, here we don't have anything. Here we don't have anything connected. Okay, so pretty much both of the rods in the center here just gave out, rods and pistons. Looks like a lot of the work has been cut out for us here. Oh, this is on fully loose. Means the bearings probably slipped out. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. How's this piston? Oh, this piston's destroyed. Let's look at the condition of this crank. I don't know, maybe this as far as taking the crank out, we're gonna have to remove the flywheel, the rear timing cover, down as such, and then like that, and then we're going to take the motor, we're going to take the engine stand off of this like that. Okay, we're going to unbolt the engine stand mount. Beautiful. Now we have access to the flywheel bolts and the rear main cover, and we can take the crank out then. Okay, so these are going to be a T55 Torx. Okay, cool. So got the flywheel off. We're going to actually reuse the flywheel on this motor because it doesn't have one. Now we're going to take off the rear main seal cover. For the rear main seal cover is going to be a bunch of E10 Torx. Okay. Beautiful. And we actually have a new rear main seal. Pry these up. It might be a little bit stuck on that. Man, these are on there precisely. Okay, got a piece of a ring. Alrighty, now we can take the crank out. Nothing else should be holding this. And there we go. Still got a couple bearings on here. Wonder if we can get that piston out. We were just hammer it out. This hole, there's a hole right there, right here. Even a hole up top. That is just crazy. Crazy. So we've got pretty much down to the bare block here. There's not really anything else we can pick up off of this. Wow, there's not a whole lot left of this piston. Alrighty, we got all of our pistons out. That is a disassembled engine, guys. Now, our next step is going to be to get this engine ready. So we're going to paint all of this aluminum silver. We're going to paint the supercharger wrinkle black. We're going to give these surge tanks another coat because they got a little bit scratched. But that is it for the disassembly part of this. If you guys enjoyed this episode, leave a like and subscribe. Now let's get started working on the new engine.